Welcome to your Daily 5 for Monday, August 11th, 2025. I think I've mentioned a couple of times before that I often participate in the book club run over on the Twit network as part of their Club Twit membership program. And I've been on the last 4 or 5 because they let club members join in on the video streams, discuss the books. And they actually release their Club Twit events, I believe, a month after they stream live. So you can actually go back and see those where I've appeared on them. And they recently had another one for a book. I've seen it referred to as both a novella and a novel, so I don't know which it's supposed to be because I've seen both descriptions attributed to it. Whatever it is a book titled This Is How You Lose the Time War by 2 authors. I'm going to attempt to pronounce these correctly. Amal El-Mohtar and Max Gladstone. I hope I got those correct. And it is a science fiction book about 2 agents that are basically front-end soldiers in a war, a multiversal, multi-temporal war between 2 empires, I believe. One titled The Agency, one titled Garden. The actual details of the conflict and how all that works are really secondary because this book's primary concern is these 2 agents as they have become aware of each other and their interactions as they go further and further in their conflict and begin to have a better understanding of each other across a battlefield, a multiversal, multi-temporal battlefield. And the book itself is, I can't remember the term for it. It's written largely as a series of letters from each of the agents back and forth, but it is not entirely done that way. I know some people do not like books that are all letters, something like Dracula or Frankenstein. It is not that. There are letters. Generally, it follows that there's a letter, then some exposition, setting the scene, showing one of the agents where they are, and then another letter that they find. That's kind of the pattern that the book repeats by and large throughout its entire length. And each of the authors wrote letters to each other. They had an overall idea of what the book would be, so they knew what the story in general was, but they actually wrote to each other these letters as the different agents, each one taking one. And so the letters themselves are very well written because there's this very organic and realistic quality to them, which is a byproduct, I would think, of that writing process. And the book itself starts off as one thing and slowly becomes something very different. I didn't read anything about the book before I went into it, so I would never have anticipated, based on how it started, that it would end up the way that it did. But I think it's done very effectively, because it is a risk to start off a book and have it seem to be one type of story and then morph it into something else. If you don't do it properly, the tone can be very jarring. It can lose an audience. If you don't bring them along into what the story is changing into, they can find that, okay, I thought this was going to be this story. Now it's something else. I'm uninterested, and they stop reading. The other problem is if you don't do it smoothly, even if the person sticks with it, it can feel very obvious where the changing points are of the story. And so it's a tough thing to do. I haven't read a lot of books that have managed it, especially ones that are formatted the way this one is, with a large degree of it being letters. And this book does it really well. And I think that's a side effect of the way they chose to write the book, and also just their ability as writers. This is just a very effective story. It's a relatively short read. I think it's just a bit over 200 pages. Again, that's why I think it falls into this gray area between novel and novella. Not that it really matters. But the story is very well told. I think the characters are very well defined, where you understand their mentalities, and the way that their mindsets toward each other change as the story goes on make a lot of sense. It doesn't feel like there are weird, out of nowhere or out of left field changes to how a character behaves. It does feel like they are evolving in a story where evolution itself seems like a nonsense concept, when time and even the universe can be bent and broken. So again, I think that's why they were smart not to define too heavily what the background world was and how the mechanics are. It lets you focus on the characters, and the characters are very well written and very likable and very understandable. And because they are the center of the story, because of how they're positioned, that's what allows the book to succeed. If it had gotten mired down the details of the war and how they were moving around through time, I think it would have just derailed the whole book. So it's an exceptionally well-written book. Again, it is titled, This Is How You Lose the Time War. And if anything I've said sounds interesting, read it, because you're going to have a good time with it. Later.